Hello, my name's Gwyn Jones, and I've been asked by Natalia to send you a few thoughts about sustainability and the challenges we face as sustainability practitioners. What I want to do first of all is give you a brief introduction to me, the organisations that I'm involved with, and how I work. And then I want to draw some parallels between what I think is happening over there in Canada and what's happening here in Europe. Look at some differences that make your situation, I think, quite unique, and then some thoughts about how we can actually address the challenges that we all face. So first of all, a bit about myself. I'm involved fundamentally in two organisations at the moment. There's the Association of Sustainability Practitioners, which is a membership organisation. It's got about 3,500 people in various stages of engagement, I guess, across the world. Most of those are just in communication rather than actively involved in it. And the other one is the Global Association of Corporate Sustainability Officers, which is another membership organisation that's set up to address the challenge of how do we actually make the career paths and the careers of sustainability practitioners in business much more effective and much more successful. Very similar organisations in the sense that it's a personal membership, there's no corporate memberships. And I think there are many parallels there between these two organisations and what I call SID21C. I hope that doesn't offend anyone, it's what you call it as well. The similarities, of course, is that we're actually facing the same challenge. The challenge as I see it is to create a sustainable future. I'm not quite sure what that means. And when I ask people around me, what are we trying to sustain? I get some blank faces and some very confused responses. And a couple of years ago, I met Alan Knight, who is the founder of GACSO, the Global Association of Corporate Sustainability Officers. And he gave me the most simple and obvious answer to that question. And it's this challenge we face of creating an environment in which 9 billion people can live equitably with equal access to food, water, health, education, medicine, etc. on a planet, on the same single planet. It's a huge challenge and it's unique. No other generation has ever faced this. So we are working in an area where there are very few certainties and very few answers. And that's unusual. Politicians, business people don't like that sort of way of thinking. So that's one thing that binds us already, is the fact that we feel somehow that we've got to address that challenge and understand the questions more and come up with solutions that may not be perfect now, but will help to move towards the ones that will be effective. The similarities between ASP and SID21C are quite fundamental. In some of the documents that Natalia sent me, describing what she's been doing, what she was trying to achieve in this meeting, I saw three words sort of scattered around there, not randomly, very, very consciously, and they were connect, challenge, and support. And I sort of chuckled because about 2 years ago, we took a very brave step in ASP and decided to dissolve it. Just take it away, just have it no longer existing, because we weren't quite sure what we were doing and whether it was still valid. So we got together about 10 or 15 people who were interested in this and asked them, what would arise in the space that was left when ASP didn't exist any longer. And after about 4 or 5 hours of very emergent, very divergent discussion, someone had said, but surely all we all need is to connect with each other, to support each other, and to be challenged. And there was a sort of a silence in the room, and we realised that is the purpose of ASP. And when I see what's happening on your side of the Atlantic, I see that you have exactly the same sort of needs as individuals. And for SID21C to be effective, I think that's a very core value proposition. And I know Natalia's very embraced that and has picked out those words and used them more exclusively. So I think that's a very important point, and it joins us together. There's a big distinction, I think, between what we're doing here and there. I think the UK is quite well advanced in sustainability, and we've got a lot of people who've been pioneers in this for a long time, and they've been addressing these issues. And to a certain extent, I think we've got it pretty easy here. Most companies get it to some extent. Those that don't are really the dinosaurs. And as Alan says, we don't need to worry about those unsustainable companies, because if they're unsustainable, then they are unsustainable. They won't last. But you've got the biggest challenge I think I've ever seen in the oil sector there, and what's happening with the shale oil, the tar sands, etc., which from this side of the Atlantic I think is just complete insanity because of the destruction that it's doing and the massive use of resources it has to take out those last grains of oil that we've got. So I think you are facing some of the most difficult challenges in trying to get those organizations to recognize that they can play a positive role in creating the future, beyond peak oil, but certainly in addressing the challenge that we all face, which I think is very simply put, and that is, how are we going to create a world that's fit for our children to live in? And how are we, as adults today, going to bring up those children so that they can bring up children? And that brings me to the very simple conclusion that I've been wrestling with for some time, that sustainability is very simple, actually. It's a very personal thing. It's how do you feel? How do you want to take responsibility for your actions and the choices that you take? And how can we bring organizations who are just collections of people to realize that it's their choices and their decisions that will affect the future and affect the long-term future for our children? So to bring it together, I just want to share a story with you, which some of you may be familiar with. So forgive me if I'm telling this story to those that already know it. But it's an old story that's been written in many cultures, and it goes back thousands of years. And it's about the Shambhala warriors. And the story goes that as man evolves through the ages, we will develop the powers and the abilities to actually destroy everything that's precious on this planet. And this will come to a head where it becomes very imminent that destruction is going to happen. And in the story, at that time, arises an army of warriors, and they're called the Shambhala warriors. And they are so powerful that they actually take on this threat and win. And the threat is actually today what we would call sustainability. Now, the cute thing about this is that the Shambhala warriors are not fighters. Their two weapons that allow them to dominate and win are compassion and insight. And those, I think, are two characteristics that we all share. We wouldn't be in these organizations if we didn't have that. We may not be aware of it, but those are the two of the core values that we hold dear. We do care about our impact on other people and the futures we're creating. We do care about the responsibilities we've got and take those seriously. And bringing that awareness into organizations is one of our biggest challenges. The question that came up the first time I heard that story was, but who are these people? Who are the Shambhala warriors? And I think if you look around the room, you're going to see a few sitting there. They're you. They're us. So how can we be effective? How can we actually, realistically, in the realities that we face, work together to be effective and have an impact? I think it comes back to those three words. We do need to connect with each other globally, locally. We do need to connect with nature, with the world. And I do think we need to connect with the generations. And we need to connect somehow with people in organizations. And for me, that's the key to being a change agent, is not addressing the CFO and the CEO and the CSO, whatever they are, by their function and their titles, but talking to them as a human being, talking to them as a parent, as a son, as a father, as a daughter, whatever. But try to get the conversation to that level, because everyone will respond at some stage to the feelings inside them about what they're going to be leaving for their children. That does require one thing. And Brené Brown on TED video summed it up for me, one of the most powerful videos I've ever come across, is that to do that, we have to be vulnerable. Only when we're vulnerable can we really be powerful. Only when we can bring people themselves to be vulnerable can they be courageous and take the sort of decisions that go against, that are countercultural, that go against everything that we've been brought up with in terms of business and economy and how society works. So I think we've got to return to the core values. We've got to make it personal. And we've got to collaborate. We've got to do that connection and supporting of each other. So I'm going to leave you the question. If SID21C is going to be effective, and it can be, and there's no reason why it can't be, I just want to ask each of you to think quite carefully about this question, and at some stage get back to Natalia with the answer. And that is, what are you going to do individually, what you personally are going to do to help Natalia make SID21C effective? It's a very simple message. If you can answer that question, then I think you'll be able to ask the same sort of question to the people you work with in businesses. How are they going to make their organizations effective and responsible? Okay, I hope that hasn't taken too much time, and I hope it hasn't seemed a bit too vague, but that's my experience of sort of 10 or 15 years working in this sector. I really wish you guys an awful lot of success. You can have such a huge impact on everyone's future in the world, and we're relying on you. So if there's any way I can help you, just let me know as well. And on that, I'm going to leave you to the rest of the event and the workshop, and thank Natalia for this privilege of being able to speak to you for a few minutes. And one day maybe I'll get over there and meet you in person. Okay? Many thanks for your time, and all the best. Go well. Bye.